Unk Talk of the day, Unpopular Opinion. Where the opinion may be unpopular, but the conversation is necessary. I'm your host, Unkle KG. I want to thank you for joining me today. Today, the topic is going to be, due to a lack of income, is there a lack of leadership? Due to a lack of income, is there a lack of leadership? Now, I would say most people, or even due to societal standards, that men tend to be leaders of their family, right? Providers, protectors, leaders, things of that nature, also in their marriages. However, it seems like there's a new day and age where if you don't have a certain number of income, a certain salary, a certain base that you make, or even if you fall on hard times, that due to your lack of income, that you're no longer a leader. And contrary to popular belief, that is not the case at all. I think many people misplace what leadership is, or they don't quite understand what being a leader is. Yes, you are a sole provider and protector, being the man of the house, the leader of your family. You know, that's why everybody under your umbrella in your home bears your last name and things of that nature. However, it's not solely based off of how much you make, how much your income is. People come up and fall off every single day. Now, I think I understand that a lot of women tend to choose their partner off of who can provide the best and protect the best. But oftentimes when it comes to looking for that level of provision in a man, it is not based upon just his character. It's not based upon him being a visionary. It's not based upon just his plan or his level of guidance, right? It's all of those things wrapped into one, and how he can provide. But how income can change daily, yearly, what have you. People fall on hard times. You may gain a job, lose a job. Who knows what can happen, right? Finances can change all the time due to different circumstances. But what should not change in a man, in a leader, is his character, his integrity, his level of guidance, his sacrifices, and how he plans to move his family moving forward. I think we need to just take a step back and really look at how we view leadership in this day and age. You may call it an old school mentality, but I think marriages lasted a lot longer back in the day. Your grandparents was married 40, 50, 60, 70 years, right? But this new era, it doesn't seem to be the case, right? So, hey, Kev, how many marriages end in divorce due to finances?
So pulling up some stuff real quick. According to the JaminezLawFirm.com, money is widely known as one of the leading causes of divorce in America. It's estimated that financial problems contribute to 20 to 40% of all divorces. This is coming from a divorce law firm.
Okay. So 20 to 40%. So, I mean, just to meet somewhere in the middle, we'll just say 30% of marriages end due to finances. Now, how many women tend to file for divorce over men? What's the percentage of that?
Pulling up something real quick.
That's my producer, Kev, by the way.
According to the American Sociological Association, asanet.org, they are saying, as part of an analysis, they found women initiated 69% of all divorces compared to 31% for men.
Okay. So, if we just think of like what we consider the norm, right? Or what we consider to be, the majority women seem to want marriage and push for marriage, right? but they're also the number one leader in asking for a divorce or filing for a divorce. And that can be due to a number of different things: infidelity, finances, abuse, whatever it might be. But out of 70% of those women, 20 to 40% of them are filing solely off of finances alone. And that's crazy to me, right? So the thing is, just because he no longer has the bag and is now doing bad financially, does that mean he's not the leader of the family anymore? He's just on hard times. That's solely what that means, that he's just on hard times. That doesn't mean that he's no longer a visionary. That doesn't mean that he lacks integrity. That doesn't mean that he lacks, a level of guidance, being able to guide you and your children or the family as a whole, right? Him being a visionary, him having a plan, right? That could make him move into a different direction to get a bigger bag.
Let me ask you something, KG. Hate to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I feel like the question should be, or one of the questions should be, is a man's masculinity tied to money, or should it be tied to money? Not even should, because I feel like we know the answer to that. Mm-hmm. And by no, I just want to put out there, the average man should be thinking, no, your masculinity should not be. But is it, though, from your perspective?
Well,
even according to a woman's perspective, or a man's, do both.
I mean, so if you think of biblical sense, right? If a man doesn't work, he doesn't eat, right? So you got to work. You gotta provide to the best of your ability. But that doesn't, your masculinity should not be tied to your net worth. Your masculinity shouldn't be tied to the money in your bank account, right? Nobody wants to be poor. Nobody wants to struggle. But this is a harsh reality for most. Whatever you take a vow to in your marriage, rich or poor, sickness and health, and whatever it is that you are incorporating in your vows due to the biblical sense, or if you create your own vows. But most vows have rich or poor in there, some sort of way, right? So if I can't provide monetarily, does that mean that I'm no longer a man? My manhood is solely based on how much money I make, how much money I can bring in. Now, as a man, if you guys are experiencing a financial hardship, difficult times, paying for bills or getting income, you should be the sole person that is trying to figure out how to better y'all circumstances. Not saying that your wife can't help. She can work or what have you. But let's say you both are working, right? And you know what, baby, we on hard times. We need more money. We got to figure things out. As a man, that's my job. That's where my masculinity comes in. It's not the lack of income, right? Well, it's the lack of responsibility, right? That's where it comes in, where I lack my masculinity, because I don't feel responsible for these people that bear my last name. I don't feel responsible for the woman I asked to marry me, right? As a man, you should feel responsible for that, right? As a man, you should feel like, what, I got to make something shake. I got to figure something out. I got to find a way to provide for my family. And of course, that will induce a higher level of stress, right? A higher level of depression. But heavy is the head. That's the road you take on. You're the first line of defense. You try to take this on and carry this weight on your shoulders so your family doesn't have to. So they don't have to experience what you're feeling as far as trying to, provide in that sense. But whether you can provide or not, what you should always be trying to do is provide. But whether you can or not, it shouldn't be because you can at this time. I can't provide this at this time, so I'm no longer a masculine man, or I'm no longer a man. No, the fact that I'm not trying, that will put my masculinity into question. The fact that I'm not trying to figure out a way to make something to shake, to provide a better situation, a better environment, a better circumstance for my family, that will be tied to my masculinity. Right? So that's what we have to come to grips with, and that's what we have to remind ourselves of. Like I said in the beginning, circumstances change all the time. Somebody can get hurt at work. He may no longer be able to go to work for 6 months or a year or what have you, right? So I know a particular guy. He was a roofer, and he used to work on roofs. This guy was a newlywed, marital bliss, the whole 9 yards. This guy fell off a roof and broke both of his arms. Both of his arms. He couldn't work for a few months. In that time frame, his wife filed for divorce because he was no longer bringing in a revenue that he once was, and he didn't have any type of supplemental insurances or what have you. Now, that's not to say they weren't having problems before. According to him, he thought they were good. It wasn't until the financial hardship happened that things started to go south, right? Things started to just, fall apart. And that's what we have to be cognizant of and be aware of, the level of seriousness of the vows that we take, right? Regardless of whether it's a year into your marriage, 30 days, 30 years, whatever you take a vow to, in front of God, in front of your family, in front of your friends, and them documents that you signed, you're going to be tested in those vows that you took. You're going to experience some of those hardships of life that comes with it. But like I said in the beginning, his lack of income does not mean he lacks leadership.
I want to cut in real quick. I got to ask you something. So, kind of being objective, unbiased, or kind of looking at the other side of it, right? Let's say, for an example, you are a father of a daughter. Your daughter is grown. She is in a marriage with a man for X amount of years, whatever the case may be. Let's say for purposes of the situation, they've been married 20 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be, right?
Okay.
It's not newlywed stage.
Yeah.
And let's say he's in a situation like that. He was the breadwinner, but something happens where he's unable to work and bring in that money. So your daughter is pretty much the primary income for that household.
Okay.
Let's say it's been going on for about 6 months to a year. Your daughter's starting to feel that pressure of being that. What advice do you give her in that situation? You give her the advice to just stay and stick it out, or is there a time limit too? I just want to kind of put it in perspective for the women who may feel that way. Is it validated?
Well, that's a great question. And being a father of a daughter, I would tell my daughter to stick it out. You gave a time frame of 6 months to a year. But within that time frame, she also needs to recognize if this man is trying to regain another source of income, if he's trying to better their circumstances. Is he still able to guide them and lead them towards a path of success, right? Not just because of the income. And also, you have to look at his track record from the beginning. When they got together and got married, hypothetically speaking or whatever, he was the breadwinner. He was providing. So now, just because he hit a rock in the road, you going to jump ship? No. Right? Okay, I'll do you one better. Let's flip it. Right? And let's say you were, perfectly healthy in the beginning of your marriage. And then you get hurt. Accident, work, whatever, something may take place, something traumatic, and you can no longer have sex for a while. Does that mean he should just abandon ship and leave?
Woo.
And go sleep with somebody else? No. When you said to death do us part. That's what you said. To death do us part. Now, like I said, you still want a provider, but his track record leading up to marriage and during the duration of the marriage before this financial hardship happened, he was holding things down. He was doing what he was supposed to do. And then something happened along the way where he began to struggle. Y'all began to struggle. But in that struggle, you should be able to see some sort of perseverance. In that struggle, you should be able to see some hard work. In that struggle, his character should remain the same. In that struggle, his integrity should remain the same. And so should yours. So should yours. Now, if he hits that financial hardship and now he later is taking on the path and becoming a bum, not because of a lack of effort, but maybe due to a lack of opportunity. Right? If he just becomes a bum because he just chooses no longer to work and he's choosing to stay in this rut and he's choosing to keep y'all in this place, then y'all need to consider therapy. I'm still not saying go for divorce right away. You need to consider therapy, some sort of wise counsel to figure things out and help this man get back on par, right? Because you are his helpmate. That's one thing we got to remember when it comes down to marriage, right? And even leadership. As a man and you the leader of your family, you still should be able to seek wise counsel from your wife. Mm. That's your helpmate, right? If you take it back in the beginning, right, or just old school, an old school mindset where the man made the money, he brought home the bacon, and the woman paid the bills, and she did the grocery shopping. She was like an accountant almost, right? She directed where the finances went. He brought home the bacon, right? But she determined where it went, right? So she was a leader in that capacity, in that space. Now, the other caveat is, what if the woman makes more money than the man? Is she now the leader of that family? No, she's not. Mm. And that brings me back to my point again. The amount of income does not determine the amount of leadership. In any partnership, whether you have a marriage, a relationship, you on a sports team, you different co-workers, any type of team environment where you got to work and coexist with somebody else, right? Professionally, personally, whatever the case might be. You all have to know each other's strengths and each other's weaknesses. You have to know that. Each other's strengths and each other's weaknesses. I might be stronger here. You might be weaker there. You might be stronger here. I might be weaker there. But us bringing together and bringing forth that yin and yang, it should somewhat balance out, right? But that doesn't mean because you make more money that you are now the leader of this family. Because if that's what you think leadership is, income, you have no idea what leadership is about.
Let me ask you something else, just to make sure we're covering a few different bases. Mm-hmm. Is the situation the same? We already talked about holding down through marriage. Mm-hmm. If they're not married and they're a couple, does the same rules apply for both parties?
So I look at things a little differently, right? I look at the courting stage or the dating stage as like your first 90 days at like the plant before your benefits kick in. Okay. Right? Like we're gonna hire you, and based upon these first 90 days, we're going to determine if you going to remain a temp, if we're going to let you go, or we're going to promote you to full time. Right? And that's kind of like what the dating stage is, right? We're auditioning, right, to be each other's spouses. And that's basically what it is in the earlier stages, right? So during this courting stage and this dating stage, right, it's going to be things that, over time, I should be able to see where your mindset is, where your head is, right? The type of leadership that you possess, the type of character, the integrity you have as a man, what you stand for, the principles that you have, right? Those are things that I should be able to see along the way during this courting stage or this dating stage. And when I say 90 days, I don't mean literally 90 days, but I'm just saying that a certain time frame until when you think or you saw enough to determine, okay, I want this person to be my spouse. So within that time frame, you should see these things or these skill sets that you feel like you want in a mate before you decide to go the extra mile and say, okay, I want this to be my life partner. But oftentimes we're so much on a high or on cloud nine in the beginning stages that we don't think about, well, what if this person can no longer provide right away? How would I feel? How would I view them? Right? Are you viewing them as a mate or just a cash cow? Right? That's something that you got to dig deep and really look at and ask yourself. Right? If this person's circumstances change, will I still like him? Will I still love him? Will I still consider him a leader? At that point, that's something that you gotta ask yourself about your own character. What is it that you're really looking for? You want a spouse or a sponsor? That's something that you gotta really ask yourself. Do you want a spouse or a sponsor? And if you want a sponsor, then I suggest that you don't get married, because that's supposed to be a lifetime commitment. You understand? So it's like, you gotta ask yourself, if this person can no longer do this in the beginning, like they were doing, right? Down the road, all the things they were doing in the beginning, they can no longer do it anymore. Will I still like them? Will I still love them? And like I said, not because of a lack of effort or a lack of trying, just because they just like whatever, right? And even once you see them going down that path, it's your job to try to reel them back in. This your life partner. You should want y'all to be successful, right? So it's not just solely on that person. It's okay, hey baby, how can I help? What do you need from me? How can I step up to make things easy on you? And that's what we should be trying to do for each other. Point blank, period. So if you think that a person's leadership is solely based upon their income, you have no idea what leadership is about. Let's take, for instance, your job. If you work for a particular company or a particular group of people, and let's say you have somebody else that's a team lead, money isn't a factor then, is it? It's how well they can do the job. It's how well they can rally the troops. It's how well they can form a plan and execute. That's what it's about. Because that person isn't taking care of you, but they're still the team lead or the supervisor or whatever their position is at your place of employment. So, that's something that we need to consider and keep in mind moving forward. Lack of income does not determine the amount of leadership that somebody can provide. So that's all I got for y'all today. I want to thank y'all for joining me. It's Unk Talk of the Day, Unpopular Opinion, where the opinion may be unpopular, where the conversation is necessary. I'm your host, Unkle KG. I want to thank you for joining me. Till next time. Peace.